Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. Welcome to Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling on NDP leader Jagmeet Singh to end the NDP Liberal coalition so that we can have a fall election. The UCP in Alberta has named their 3 nominees who are vying to become the party's new candidate for the Lethbridge West riding. And the sentencing hearing for the Coutts 2 continued at the Lethbridge courthouse. BCN's Landon Hickok has the latest.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling on NDP leader Jagmeet Singh to end the coalition with the Trudeau Liberals to force an early election this fall. Poilievre called on both the New Democrats and the Bloc Québécois in Ottawa to vote non-confidence in the government when the House of Commons resumes next month. The opposition leader says Liberal policies are making life so much less affordable for Canadians.
If you're a billionaire, like the people Trudeau vacations with, then you don't have to worry about inflation because your assets are inflation-proof or even inflation-positive. You get richer. It's a transfer of wealth from the have-nots to the have-yachts. And you know what? It's ironic. It's all done with Jagmeet Singh's support. He can huff and puff all he wants, but he supported the inflationary policies that destroyed the wages of working-class people, and he supports what Justin Trudeau did on the rail strike. Do you know how we know? Do you know how we know that? Do you know how we know that? No. Do you know how we know that Jagmeet supports it? Because he's still in a coalition with them. And if Jagmeet didn't support it, he would respond to my letter this afternoon and say he's pulling out of the costly coalition and he's going to vote to bring down Trudeau and cause a carbon tax election.
And by the way, a new poll by Leger says 62% of Canadians now want the carbon tax scrapped altogether. An early earthquake warning system for Western Canada is now fully operational. Speaking to reporters in British Columbia, Federal Emergency Preparedness Minister Harjit Sajjan says the system has been a long time coming and it will save lives.
This system that we're talking about didn't just start. These discussions started a long time ago, that we need the right systems. It's not just about the response. We need to put the technology, the research in place. So there's a lot of work that has taken place. I want to acknowledge all the people who have been part of this, and now the implementation. I can assure you, this system is going to save lives. It's going to be part of a much wider system, and we're going to be doing more. One of my biggest concerns as Minister of Emergency Preparedness across this country is as we are dealing with, imagine, wildfires across the country, that we have a significant earthquake that happens at the same time. We need to make sure that we have the right information, the right data, and the right response capability.
Well, it's an end to a rivalry. Officials with the BC United Party and the BC Conservative Party announced that the BC United Party will fold to avoid any vote splitting on the right. Party officials say their main goal is to defeat the BC NDP in the upcoming provincial election in October.
I've spent my entire adult life fighting not only the NDP and their brand of left-wing socialism, but also fighting to unite the center-right. And that's why I made the decision that I made as leader of BC United to suspend our campaign. I will be withdrawing our candidate nominations, and in cooperation with John Rustad, we will work together to assemble the best possible team of MLAs and candidates that can serve the best interests of British Columbians.
I have to say, I want to echo something Kevin said. This is not an easy thing to be able to do. The United Party certainly has had 50 candidates that are out there, and it's not just candidates, but it's their teams and all the staff that is behind it, all the people working on these teams. This has created a lot of disruption, and I really feel for that. And this will be a process that we have committed to working between the BC United Party with the Conservative Party to make sure that we put the best field forward that we can to bring an end to the destructive policies of David Eby.
The United Conservative Party here in Alberta announced that there will be 3 nominees who will be seeking to become their new candidate for the Lethbridge West riding. They are former Lethbridge Police Chief and current City Councillor John Middleton Hope, Aaron Leclerc, who's the former constituency office manager for both MLA Nathan Newdorf and MP Rachel Thomas, and Shauna Gruninger, who is a longtime real estate professional and entrepreneur. Officials say a forum has been arranged by the local candidate nominating committee. It'll be held in the theater gallery at the Lethbridge Public Library on Thursday, September 12th from 7 till 9 p.m. It'll give locals an opportunity to get to know the candidates a little better. The nomination contest will wrap up on September the 23rd. A Calgary judge ordered that Medicine Hat Mayor Lindsay Clark's $140,000 salary be reinstated. It had been cut in half following sanctions imposed on Clark by her city council. This followed a feud between the mayor and the city's manager, Ann Mitchell. Justice Rosemary Nation struck down the vast majority of the sanctions levied against Clark, saying they were overwhelmingly disproportionate. Clark will also resume her duties as mayor next month. Clark says she feels vindicated and is looking forward to getting back into the mayor's chair and receiving her full pay once again.
I was happy to see the decision. Having 50% of your pay cut has its consequences. And so that was a piece that, was very much a relief. And then to get my duties that were removed back, and her decision kind of sets up one of the provisions to go back to council for review with her notes in mind. So that's, I guess, one step that still has to be done. And certainly looking forward to, moving forward with this council together, working for the betterment of our community.
Clark adds that she will continue to advocate to have an integrity commissioner at the provincial level. She says this will help to support council members in case major issues arise once again in the future. Well, it is back to school time, and for many parents, it can be quite stressful. So much money needed for back to school supplies and clothing for the kids. Now, when it comes to opening our wallets, however, we should be very thankful that we live here in Alberta, since we don't have to pay a PST, but only the GST. Chris Sims is the Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. She joins us from here in Lethbridge. Chris, you say that parents here in Alberta actually save quite a bit of money this time of year?
We really are. I think that this kind of flies under the radar too often here in Alberta, because sometimes we don't know how good we've got it. So I was just looking, for example, at kids' clothes. I couldn't believe the prices, Hal. It was $67 for a plain hoodie for my son, for a child size plain hoodie. So we know the prices out there are really crazy this year, but we wanted to highlight the fact that here in the province of Alberta, we have no PST. So per family, they're saving about $50 just on no PST, just on back to school shopping. So that was a really big deal.
So Chris, when it comes to provinces that are a lot more expensive for parents, which ones are we talking about here?
So if you take a look at other provinces, for example, across the province here in Alberta, parents are saving around $20 million by not having a PST on back to school shopping. However, if you look next to us in British Columbia, they have a very punishing 7% PST on nearly everything, including a lot of school supplies. This might sound strange, but backpacks and knapsacks carry a PST, but they have this strange exemption for bags designed specifically to carry books. You can somehow fight for a rebate. That's really unfair. What's also unfair about British Columbia is that they charge a PST on used items. So if you're a family who's shopping at a thrift shop for back to school for your kid, you're still paying PST. So that's really out of bounds. You take a look at a place like Ontario, they're across the province there. Those families are going to be spending around $50 million just in their PST portion, just in back to school. So lots of other provinces are really paying big bucks.
Thanks so much, Chris. That was Chris Sims, Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Lethbridge. Government officials said thanks to higher than expected oil prices, Alberta's forecast to have a surplus of $2.9 billion at the end of 2024-2025. That's around $2.6 billion higher than was originally forecast in Budget 2024. Instead of dividend checks like the Ralph Klein years, however, government officials say the extra funding will be needed as our province's population is expected to grow by 4.6% this year. They say funding will be needed to help schools with enrollment growth and money to support families and communities affected by wildfires across the province. Well, you know, many kids will be heading back to school once again, or some parents refer to it, the most wonderful time of the year. But, you know, before we think about back to school, let's enjoy one more long weekend. The Labor Day long weekend is coming up. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, it looks like warm temperatures for the next few days as we make our way to the much-needed long weekend.
Yes, and what a difference we're seeing today compared to yesterday with all that rain, all those low-hanging clouds. Well, today you wouldn't have even been able to tell because not a cloud in the sky today. Clear blue skies, and we've got lots more of that coming our way over the next few days, actually over the next week, including a Friday. Look at that, 29 degrees, nice clear skies. That's going to last right into the weekend, like you mentioned there, Hal. And I'll be back later in the show to give you that full 7-day forecast.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. The sentencing hearing for Chris Carbert and Anthony Olenek, otherwise known as the Coutts, 2, continued on Thursday. Court heard sentencing pitches from the Crown and the defense before the justice gives his expected final submission on Friday. BCN's Landon Hickok is at the courthouse and has more. Landon?
Thanks, Hal. I'm back here at the Lethbridge Courthouse where we are nearing the end of the sentencing hearing for Chris Carbert and Anthony Olenek. We have heard the lawyers from both the defense and the Crown stating on their opinions what they think the proper sentencing on the two men should be. The Crown made their submissions first. Crown prosecutor Stephen Johnson once again made his case that the two men showed their readiness for conflict between protesters and police officers and recommended 9 years for the two men, stating it was near the high degree maximum of 10 years, just shy if the event were to take place. Johnston also commended the RCMP's response when they made their initial arrests on the two men, stating their professionalism in, quoting, stopping this thing before it got too far, once again stating that the two men were dangerous. When Olenek's defense lawyer, Marilyn Burns, took the stand once again, she once again addressed her comments from earlier in the week, stating a cultural bias relating to the weapons charge, in quoting saying that urban people just aren't comfortable with firearms. Burns went through several reference letters from a business that Olenek collaborated with, stating from various people that they know him by his respect for people and his professionalism and his kind demeanor. One of them including his growing faith in Jesus Christ as a reference to his character. In terms of sentencing, Burns recommended to Justice David LeBrance that Olenek would be given absolute discharge on the explosives charge and community service on the mischief charge, and that he learned his lesson over his time in remand for the last 2 years. And it is expected that Justice David LeBrance will give his final submission and sentencing on Friday, in which we'll finally know the fates of Chris Carbert and Anthony Olenek after 3 months of trial proper and over 2 years since their initial arrest. For Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
Athletes get to enjoy some unique experiences, especially those who compete in the Olympics. Paige Crozon is a Lethbridge 3-on-3 basketball player. She's been competing in the Olympics for over 20 years, and yet she says her recent experience in Paris was second to none. Crozon talks about her long and busy summer and her incredible experience competing in the 2024 Summer Games for Team Canada.
So we play on a professional circuit called the FIBA 3x3 Women's Series. So we play on stops all around the world all summer long. We've been doing that for 5 years, and that's amazing. And the travel is also really draining. And I don't think I realized before this process just the emotional toll that it takes to get to the Olympics. The journey is so consuming, which makes it so incredible, but then also so heartbreaking when you don't get the results that you want. But just this year, we started training in December and had multiple training camps. We had our Olympic qualification process, so it started in May and lasted for about 5 weeks. And we traveled to Japan, to Canada, to Europe, and back to Canada, all in that journey. And then we played in 4 stops between May and when the Olympics happened. So it's been a really long summer. We've had so many events and training camps. Absolutely unbelievable. I've dreamed about going to the Olympics or competing in the Olympics for about 20 years. So to be in that environment, the first time I walked onto the court at practice, it literally left me breathless. So to play in those venues and on that stage was amazing.
The days are pretty busy that way. Everybody talks about, well, it must be so great to be there and experience the Olympics and stuff, but you're really, as a coach, you're pretty busy the whole time, basically trying to make sure that things are good enough for the athletes to perform at the level that they're accustomed to or want to.
By the way, Canada won a total of 27 medals at the Paris Olympics, including 9 gold. So proud of our athletes. Can religious freedom be a force for unity in today's society? This question is the theme for the Religious Freedom Symposium that is set to be held September the 21st here in Lethbridge. Richard Lowe, member of the organizing committee for the symposium, says the event will bring together speakers who will present their research and studies, which proves that the world is a much better place if we have religious freedom.
That's a very timely topic because we know that we're surrounded by polarization, conflict, people who are, saying one thing or another, whether it's a cultural difference, a religious difference, a lifestyle difference, whatever. And the essence of religious freedom is helping us to learn to respect, to listen to others and respect their right to believe the way they believe, or to live the way they want to live, and to do so peacefully. So that's why we decided that it was important to organize a local symposium. We use some connections that we have with people in Toronto and Ottawa and in Texas. And there are lots of benefits that even non-religious people don't always appreciate, that the value of religious freedom, when that is valued by a government, when that is respected by a government, the whole society seems to work better and run better.
Again, the symposium will run September the 21st from 10 till 4, and tickets are available at eventbrite.ca. We've all heard the message, don't text and drive. It still happens, however, and can sometimes have devastating consequences. One Lethbridge woman who was hit by a distracted driver refuses to live her life as a victim. As BCN's Jeanette Rocher reports now, she's not only overcome her disadvantages, but has thrived through them and hopes to inspire others with her story.
Give it some pizzazz.
It's probably not every day you see beautiful works of art created by someone who has limited mobility in their arms. But then, you probably haven't met Marjorie Machen-Brower. And looking at Marjorie's paintings, it's hard to believe she hasn't always been an artist. But then again, she hasn't always been in this wheelchair.
And I love to paint. I love to inspire others, especially with disabilities, and give them hope and let them know that their disabilities don't have to disable them.
Marjorie took up painting only recently to manage chronic pain. Although she's a quadriplegic with limited mobility, she still feels discomfort and a burning sensation.
It manages it because it's distracting. It distracts you from the pain, so you're not consumed with it.
In her early 40s, Marjorie had been a model, a personal trainer, and triathlete. The former Lethbridge YWCA fitness instructor had even qualified for the Ironman competition in Houston, Texas. She was at the peak of her career until one fateful day in December of 2008. The mother of 4 had been training for the Ironman and was cycling on a Texas highway with several other riders when a distracted driver in an SUV hit her at 100 kilometers per hour.
He was texting and uninsured. I literally flew over top the other riders and landed on my back, but I'm pretty sure I had angels cushioning my fall.
A spinal cord injury left her paralyzed from the chest down.
I do remember waking up, and then the doctor had come in and said that, yes, Marjorie, you've had an accident, spinal cord injury, and we don't think that you'll probably walk. Well, my heart just sunk. It was going to be life-changing.
Although Marjorie has had to learn to live her life in this chair, she has not allowed it to slow her down.
He has to live with this, and I've chosen to forgive him. Forgiveness is freedom.
With limited arm movement, she's put them to good use. Several years after the accident, she went back to instructing fitness classes at the YWCA through a special bike designed just for her.
They place my feet onto the pedals, they strap them on, and then my arms are what bikes my legs.
And now, instead of inspiring through fitness, she's making the world a more beautiful place through art.
Very inspiring.
Diana Sim is the executive director of Martha Retreat Center and knew about Marjorie's dream to have an open house to showcase her artwork.
And I said, well, that's something possibly that we could do at Martha Retreat Center. And so it kind of evolved from there.
With the art show a success and selling off every single piece, Marjorie plans to use the proceeds towards making her home more wheelchair accessible.
Marge taking the step to learn to paint and to actually paint and to lead to this show today is quite an incredible feat for her.
Even with limitations, you know, you can create beautiful things.
For Bridge City News, I'm Jeanette Roche.
What a beautiful and inspirational story. Wow. Well, it's nice to return to some beautiful temperatures across much of southwestern Alberta today, and that warming trend will continue as we make our way to the Labor Day long weekend. Full weather details are coming up. You know, it was a lovely day for a picnic down at Henderson Lake, or maybe a jog through the nice coulees once again today. Jeanette Roche is in with all of the weather details. Jeanette, these beautiful temperatures should remain as we get closer to the Labor Day long weekend.
Yeah, it is still summer, so whoever's saying that it's fall, it's not quite fall yet, not until, I don't know, September 20th or something. So we are still looking at a beautiful week ahead of us of lovely high 20-degree temperatures and even a 30 in there on a Sunday. So we're seeing clear skies all the way through, 29 on Friday, 26 Saturday. There's that 30 on Sunday, 29 again on Monday, 28 on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we're well above the average high for this time of year. So seasonal right now is 23, average low for this time of year, 8 degrees, 34. That was our high temperature on this day happening back in 1929. And in 1909, way back then, we were at the record cold for this day, which was only 1 degree. So sun rose this morning at 6:44 a.m. Looking at a sunset today at 8:19, giving us 13 hours, 35 minutes of daylight, 4 minutes shorter than we saw yesterday. Okay, fairly sunny skies on the west coast tomorrow, 27 for the high in Victoria, 23 in Vancouver, Edmonton sitting at 23 and 27 in Calgary. Mainly sunny skies all across there. As we get into the rest of the prairies here, Saskatchewan and Manitoba, 25 for the high in Saskatoon, Regina sitting at 26 and a lovely 24 degrees tomorrow in Winnipeg. As we get to the central part of the country, Toronto seeing 28 degrees, 40% chance of showers in Ottawa tomorrow. I think that's the only place across the country seeing moisture. 24 for the high there, 27 in Montreal with clear skies. And as we get to the Maritimes, we are seeing a lot more sunshine as well. 24 for the high in Fredericton, 21 in Halifax, as well as Charlottetown, and a high of 20 degrees in St. John. So there you go. Quick and short, that is your forecast.
The chair of Canada Post's board says the agency is unsustainable with its current financial situation. Andre Houdon says the Postal Service is at a critical juncture and a significant change is needed if Canada is going to preserve the delivery network. In August, the Crown Corporation reported second quarter profits of $46 million before tax as a one-time sale of subsidiaries helped offset operational losses of $269 million. Houdon says a massive online shopping during the COVID-19 pandemic reshaped the parcel delivery market, with Canada Post now competing with high-tech, low-cost operators. The Calgary Airport Authority says it will take at least 18 months to fix hail damage to its domestic terminal. Parts of northern Calgary were hit pretty hard by hail on August the 5th, with chunks shattering car windows and scraping siding off of homes. The Airport Authority's chief operating officer says golf ball-sized hail punched through the membrane of the terminal's roof and then rain poured in, causing a lot of flooding. The authority says Concourse B will be closed while restoration work is done, but other parts of the terminal are just fine. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 100 points on the day to finish at 23,227. The Dow was up 243 points to 41,335. The S&P 500 was down just under a point today to 55.91, and the Nasdaq was down 39 points to 17,516. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $1.42 to 75.94 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was up 5 cents to 2.14 U.S. Gold was up $16.62 on the day to 25.2102 U.S. an ounce, and silver was up 27 cents to 29.40 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.48 per bushel, barley's at $5.60, canola's at $13.50, and corn is at $7.24 per bushel. Live cattle were down $1.53 to $179.98. Feeder cattle were down 38 cents to $243.18. And lean hogs were up $1.33 to $102.80. The Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours at 74.20 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling on NDP leader Jagmeet Singh to end the coalition with the Trudeau Liberals and force a fall election. Poilievre called on both the New Democrats and the Bloc Québécois in Ottawa to vote non-confidence in the government when the House of Commons resumes next month. The opposition leader says Liberal policies are making life so much less affordable for Canadians. The Israel Defense Forces have launched a major counter-terrorism offensive in the West Bank. Lisa Daftari from the Foreign Desk will have details for us momentarily. When you see news happening in your community, please send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also, be sure to visit our website anytime to check out a number of stories and interviews. Hundreds of soldiers with the Israel Defense Forces launched the largest counterterrorism operation in a number of months in the West Bank. Now, to chat about this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert and host of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, who actually just returned from a mini vacation in Lake Louise here in Alberta. Lisa, welcome back to BCN.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your beautiful Canada with me. It was wonderful and majestic.
You got your Rocky Mountain fix, did you?
I did. It was really gorgeous, and I'm so happy I had the opportunity to visit your beautiful country.
Awesome. Now, Lisa, let's circle back to that huge offensive by the IDF, which was allegedly in response to an attempted suicide bombing attack in Tel Aviv, along with a recent spike in Muslim extremist behavior.
Yeah, so this just points to yet another front in this war. What many people don't understand is that this didn't just sprout up since October 7th, that Israel has been dealing with terrorists coming from Gaza, coming from the West Bank. Many of your viewers refer to it as Judea and Samaria, and also coming from Yemen and Iraq and Syria and Lebanon, where Hezbollah is. These are all the places where the Islamic Republic, the regime inside Iran, has propped up proxies and terrorists and supported them and giving them weapons and really the will to kill themselves and kill others in the name of jihad. And this offensive now, this campaign really is overdue in many ways. When I talk to military leaders inside Israel, they talk about how, this was something that they had put off for a long time, but now it has gotten to a point where the jihadis, the terrorists, have doubled down on their agenda to launch bombs into Israel, to launch missiles, and also to carry out one-offs, whether it's car ramming, whether it's abductions, whether it's suicide bombings, whether it's knife attacks. We've seen all of the above in recent years, and of course, much more so since October 7th. So yet another front in this war. And again, I remind my viewers, my readers, wherever I have a chance on media, that when we see, the Israeli army rescue a hostage this past week, it was a Bedouin. He was a Muslim. He was an Arab, but he was an Israeli citizen, which goes to show there is no apartheid in Israel, A, and B, that this is truly a war of those who support terrorism and those who are victims to it, like this Bedouin Arab who was held by Hamas as captive for almost 1 year.
Now, according to Sky News Arabia, Lisa, senior Hamas officials are calling for the resumption of even more suicide bombings?
Right. So much for that ceasefire, right? Just a waste of time and optics for the West to believe that they're doing something. But as many of you know and have been following, many ceasefire attempts have been rejected by the terror organization. And now, again, they come out and say, we're not even interested in a ceasefire. We're only interested in renewing this call for jihad, where we want suicide bombers all around the world, Hal, not just in the Middle East, but around the world, to target the West. It's not, again, not a war of just the Palestinians against the Israelis. It's a war against jihadis and anybody who prescribes or, believes in a Western pro-freedom, pro-democracy type of lifestyle.
Foreign Minister Israel Coutts, Lisa, says Israel should temporarily evacuate Palestinian residents from the West Bank to facilitate the destruction of terror infrastructure located in the region. That would be a pretty big, ambitious endeavor.
Yeah, it would be yet another endeavor, right, Hal? So we know that when they went into Gaza, there was an effort to evacuate, sometimes successfully and sometimes unsuccessfully, where Hamas put these innocent people, whether they're students in a school, whether it's a hospital, whether it's people in a very densely populated neighborhood, put them in harm's way, where they were victims to this awful war. So we saw that in Gaza, we saw it in Rafah, and now it would be in the West Bank. So Israel is attempting to launch an even larger offensive here, because their feeling is, if we're going to put an end to terrorism, we have to root it out in every inch of this place. And if they're going into the West Bank, well, then they need to remove the people so that that death toll doesn't go up, and that they're able to really scour through and to identify not only the terrorists, but where they keep their weapons, where they have their tunnel systems, and where they operate from.
New research by U.S. cybersecurity firm Mandiant says a hacking group in Iran ran a fake professional recruiting business to lure national security officials across Iran, Lebanon, and Syria into a cyber espionage trap. Tell me more about that.
They get more and more sophisticated every day, Hal. This is an area in which the Iran regime, the Islamic Republic, has really doubled down its efforts in terms of cyber warfare. This is yet another basically phishing scam, where they were trying to identify experts in the region. It makes perfect sense, right? Who are the experts? Those who are educating people, raising awareness, and they either, they're the leaders of opposition in many cases. And here in the West, we've seen many of these campaigns as well. This is something that I've given talks on many, many times. We're talking about the influence campaign by the Islamic Republic to enter into different spheres to exert their influence or to obtain information in terms of espionage. So we've seen it in universities across the West. I know it happens in Canada. It happened here in the United States. It happens in Europe, whether it's in science labs, whether it's in reconnaissance in terms of getting, military equipment and then copycatting that at home, selling it to the Russians, selling it to North Korea, giving it to Hamas, giving it to Hezbollah. And we see it in our government. We have had it here in the United States, where people who work in the State Department, in the Pentagon, have security clearance, are actually sent over by the Islamic Republic to get information and to report it back to the mullahs in Tehran. So this is yet another wake-up call to the sophistication or the level of, or the appetite to really exert that influence and to gather information from the West.
It turns out U.S. President Joe Biden did, in fact, give the green light to build the now infamous Gaza aid pier, despite warnings that the plan could severely misfire. Now, Lisa, the floating pier, built in May by the U.S. military, cost taxpayers around $230 million. Let me ask you, was it a good investment? Was the much-needed aid received by the Palestinian people?
It was not only a waste of money, it was a waste of time, and it gave false hope. And I'll tell you, one of them, we've talked about this before, Hal, but I'll say it again. The fact that we're in an election cycle here in the United States has been one of the most unfortunate things about this war in the Middle East, because we don't really see the truth. We don't have a real, a clear narrative about what's going on, because, the Biden administration and now Kamala Harris, who wants to obviously run as the Democrat nominee, are playing both sides. We hear this as they want to get votes in Michigan, so they have to pander to the pro-Palestinian talking points, and then of course losing a lot of Jewish donors and pro-Israel Christian donors and voters, and then pandering to this side. Look, there are truths in this war, and the fact that this pier would not have worked should have been really what comes out in this discussion, just like the ceasefire opportunities that were just waste of time when one side is not interested in a ceasefire. The Middle East, terrorism, national security, these are nonpartisan issues. These are bipartisan issues where both sides should come together and say, how do we best approach this so that there could be security and stability in the Middle East for both the Palestinians and the Israelis? How could we approach this so that terrorism doesn't trickle into the West, into Canada, into the United States, and into Europe? How do we deal with this so that we could put an end to it and not just be pandering for votes? Can't wait for this election to be over, Hal.
Yeah, see how it'll all shake down. Lisa, a new law enacted by the Taliban in Afghanistan has been condemned by the United Nations and the European Union. It imposes even more restrictions on women, including that they cover and clothe their entire bodies, and bans their voices from being heard in public. Women's movement is also being restricted without a male relative.
You know, Hal, are we surprised? No, this is exactly what people knew what would happen when we withdrew from Afghanistan 3 years ago and very, very abruptly allowed the Taliban to come into play there. We were promised that this is not the Taliban of the 90s, and guess what, Hal? They're even worse. This is, you know, very unfortunate for all of the blood and treasure that the West invested in Afghanistan for 2 decades to only leave it in worse hands, to not allow the women who are educated, the women who had semi-decent lives before the Taliban came in, now not able to go to school, not able to work, not able to even run basic errands, to go to the doctor and to go to the grocery store without a male chaperone. Look, these condemnations, just lip service, right? The United Nations, the European Union, what did they do, at the time when the Taliban came into office? They normalized this political Islam, and it turned into extremist Islam. Again, are we surprised that when we usher in this type of government and a terror organization and we normalize relations with them and treat them like a normal sovereign nation, that this would not happen? It's unfortunate. And I do hope that the people of Afghanistan do find some way to break free and to have really a chance at a free life.
And I doubt we'd see large demonstrations in Afghanistan because a lot of the women would fear for their lives.
Absolutely. And that's what we see across the board in the Middle East, whether it's, the Palestinians living under Gaza. I've interviewed many of them who live under Hamas and have really no chance at coming out. They'll be killed. Or the Iranians. We saw how bravely the Iranian women came out onto the streets, and the aftermath of the 22-year-old Mahsa Amini being killed for not wearing her hijab properly. They tried. They were brave. They were courageous. They didn't get that help that they needed from the West. I mean, the EU, the UN, where were they then? But it's very difficult because the people have a certain voice and they're not able to express that voice or communicate that voice. But then, this is what we're seeing: the Taliban, the Islamic Republic, Hamas, Hezbollah, all being able to march forward.
Very sad. Lisa, closer to home, the Biden-Harris administration is allegedly using loopholes to expand welfare benefits once again. Now, it apparently is to help low-income families pay for broadband internet service. Is this not a good thing, though?
Look, in many ways, the welfare programs we have here in the United States are wonderful things. What's happening right now is that we're in an election cycle, and that always brings out, different promises and different. Again, this is a loophole, right? This is something that is being promised to people. Who's going to pay for it? All these wonderful free things are just lovely. And we would all love to take care of those who don't have as much or need, just some help to get to the next level. But there's also a bill in California, for example, Hal, that they want to give zero down payment and zero prepayment home loans to illegal migrants. And that is really causing so much chaos here in California because so many, average Americans can't afford even groceries right now with the state of the economy, and to be giving these kinds of freebies to the migrants who just arrived just seems unfair when Americans have been working for decades to really just survive. I think it's more across the board that we have to look at the bigger picture and not just look at this as a political play. How can we help people and, as the saying goes, make them fishermen and not just give them the fish. We're in a very bad economy right now, and until whoever's going to be president come January 2025 has to deal with the average American, how they get, how they can pay for gas, how they can pay for groceries, and then we'll talk about the freebies like internet and free homes and things like that.
The election is just around the corner. You're absolutely right. What are the latest polls saying? Harris or Trump? Who's in the lead right now?
It's close, but what I'm seeing is this honeymoon phase for Kamala Harris is still continuing, you're seeing a lot of media censorship. Meta CEO Zuckerberg came out and said that he is guilty of complying with that censorship, allowing the Biden administration to really exert its influence even in social media. Look, that's what we see when you turn on your television, when you're watching the news. You don't really hear about Donald Trump as much anymore. It's all Kamala, 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 and the message that they have is joy, happiness, hope. Very similar to what we saw with President Obama's campaign. Not so much policy. And the debate is coming up in a couple of weeks. I know that Kamala Harris's team will surely prepare her well for that. But until then, she hasn't really given any interviews. She will not speak off the cuff. She will not give, just a natural interview. The CNN interview she agreed to. She wants to bring a buddy. She will be bringing her vice presidential pick to sit with her. It's interesting. I don't know how this will turn out or how the average American perceives this, or whether they're looking at policy or if they're looking at this as more of an emotional decision. Do I want the orange guy who's a bad guy, or do I want this woman who represents, the media is telling me represents hope and joy? So we shall see. Obviously, the policies matter so much, or else we wouldn't be in the situation that we are. In the last 4 years, I think America has suffered so much across the board in many ways, but truly in terms of foreign policy, which you and I talk about a lot, it's quite important to look at policy going forward.
Looking forward to seeing that debate. Lots of fireworks ahead. Political reporter and host of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, thanks again for joining us from Los Angeles.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Curling is a unique sport, sometimes described as a cross between shuffleboard and checkers, and of course, all taking place on a sheet of ice. Curling rinks are ubiquitous across Canada, and here in Lethbridge, it is no different. To chat more about curling today, we are joined by Kirk Mearns, the General Manager for the Lethbridge Curling Club. Great to have you with us today, Kirk.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, I love chatting about, and playing curling. It's you and I were just chatting before we got started that I need to get signed up for the curling league in my community. Can you share with us a little bit of the history of the Lethbridge Curling Club?
Yeah, the Lethbridge Curling Club has been around a long time. It's over 125 years. It started as a lot of winter sports do, outdoors on frozen ponds and wherever ice could be formed. We moved indoors in the early 1900s when they started to figure out sort of they could make ice indoors, but curling really came into its own in the 50s when artificial ice was developed and we could start to really move indoors and make ice when we wanted it and make it the way we wanted to. So the Lethbridge Curling Club was at the old Civic Center since 1950, so for 66 years. We've been in the community a long time.
That's great. And so what have been some of the major bonspiels that have been here in Lethbridge?
Lethbridge has been really lucky. We've hosted all of the big major national bonspiels. We've had the Scotties a couple of times, World Men's, World Women's. We had the Briar just a couple of years ago, which was fantastic. The club has hosted the World Seniors, the World Mixed Doubles. We've been very lucky to host pretty much all of the major curling events.
Wow, that's great. So what is it about the sport of curling that you think really draws people in?
I think it's something that you can do from 9 to 90. It's easy to learn and impossible to master. We find it's a sense of community. People, you get together, it's fun. They can enjoy the social aspect of it, and I think it boils down to it's an open sport where people can learn. It's not expensive. It's easy to get in, and curling clubs are just welcoming places.
Right, and once again, circling back to you and I chatting briefly before we got started, there is that. It's an iconic Canadian thing, the smell of the rink. And I know for myself, thinking of those childhood Saturday nights or something, leaving the farm to go to the curling club. Can you talk a little bit about that community building aspect of curling?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that hasn't changed. We're an activity where if mom and dad want to come and curl on a Saturday afternoon in one of our leagues or Saturday night, bring the kids, let them run around and have some fun and sit down and have a pop and some French fries while mom and dad are curling. Chance to get them involved. It's a real family activity and very, like I say, open, welcoming. We're a sport that wants to include everybody, wants to continue to grow.
Yeah. Now, speaking about our Lethbridge curling facility specifically, how does that compare with other facilities in the province?
We're one of the brand newest, if not the newest. We're only 8 years old. We were lucky to work with the city and get a new curling club built when we built the Cavendish Center here on the west side. We're 10 sheets. We are one of the largest. There are only a couple of 10-sheeters in Alberta right now. We're brand new. We have state-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art ice making plant, and a wonderful viewing area open to everybody. So it's a brand new facility that is as good as there is in Alberta right now.
Wow, that sounds great. So how many members do you currently have in the club?
We have about 600 full-time members. We have we average around 60 juniors in our program. We have a couple of what we would call leagues that just come in and rent. So we have over 1,000 people curling per week in the club in various times. We start curling at 10 in the morning and people are curling at 10 at night.
Wow. That's a significant activity and group of people if you have 1,000 people per week during the season.
Yeah. We're one of the busiest clubs in Alberta for sure.
Wow. And so how does the Lethbridge Curling Club serve the local seniors?
We have, that's fantastic. We have our daytime senior league that runs Tuesday to Friday. It's a really easy league to get into. It runs in very short, sort of little 5-week groups. We put people together on teams. If you don't have a team, you just show up, and we put you together with all of our other seniors. Seniors are a big part of our club, and they spend a significant amount of time here during the day, just curling and making friends and spending time.
Yeah, that community aspect of curling is enormous. Now, how about the other end of the age spectrum? Those students, are there school clubs or let's say phys ed classes that go curling?
Yeah, we have our own junior program that runs on Wednesdays, and that's for kids 9 to 15. We host a high school league. High schools come in Monday and Tuesday, and all the high schools get together and they come in. Very significant, probably the biggest in the province again. Gym classes book our during the school year. We have probably 8 or 10 different schools that bring their gym classes in for an hour at a time, and we have some instructors that pop out there and help out the teachers because a lot of times they don't know how to curl either, and it's all a part of how busy we are and how connected to the community we are.
Right. Now, just to stick with that younger generation for a moment, do you see that there is that interest from the younger generation to be in leagues?
There is, and it's curling has sort of fills that gap. There's a lot of kids that just aren't going to play hockey. They're going to play soccer or whatever it is. But during the school year, they can curl. Anybody can come out. Like I say, we can teach anybody how to curl. It's, nobody sits out. If you come out, you play. There's no sitting on the sidelines. There's no, 6 a.m. practices in the morning, games at 9 o'clock at night. Parents love bringing their kids to curling because they know when it is every week, and their kids have a great time playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly have fond memories from my youth of throwing the rocks down the sheets. Yeah. And
as do I, but mine was a little bit longer ago than yours.
Well, they're still locked in there, and
right
I know I would probably be remiss not to mention my high school friend Steve Fisher. His family was all over the sheets of ice there in and around Medicine Hat. But now,
Right.
what about provincial winning teams or maybe future Olympians that might be calling Lethbridge home?
Yeah, we've had some success with some of our competitive curlers, our competitive juniors coming out of here. You know, Kaylee Shannon, the Whitmire brothers. They're like on the verge now of moving to that next elite level, and you never know. You never know sort of how a team gets put together or how it goes. Of course, we have the Scheidegger family with Casey and Jesse. Casey took a bit of step back to start her family. And I'm pretty sure she'll be back into it right away. And Jesse's still curling at a high competitive level. So, you know, the curling, the Olympic trials are this November. So you never know who might get up there and get on a hot streak, and we'll see them on TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always great to watch. Now, I wanted to ask you about the cost to join and play in a league.
Yeah, it's curling very reasonable. To be a member of our club, right? Just to be a member and to access practice ice and come in is only $70 a year to be a member of Lethbridge Curling Club. Our main weekday leagues, our big leagues, our big adult leagues, about $380 for the whole season to play. Kids play for less than half of that. Our seniors play for less than that. So for around $400 or less, you can curl for a full season, and you get access to as much practice ice as you want, and instruction, and use of our lounge and all of our other facilities.
Right. Well, that sounds very reasonable for what a person's going to get out of it, and especially the cost of entertainment these days. It's great to be physically active and be out on the sheets of ice. Now, I wanted to ask you, we all probably remember the old straw brooms. So if somebody wants to get into this, what are they looking at as far as equipment costs go?
To just get started, the club will loan you, all you need is a pair of sneakers and a pair of gloves. And if you come out to learn how to curl, we've got some learn to curls. We have brooms you can borrow. We've got sliders that you can slide on. We have all the stuff that you can borrow. So basically, like I say, all you need is a pair of clean runners and a pair of gloves, and you can learn. And even after that, as you start to progress through, it's not that expensive. A broom is $100, and a pair of shoes is $150, and they last for 4 seasons, type of thing. So it's a very inexpensive sport. As you get more competitive, of course, the costs go up. But yeah, starting in curling is as inexpensive as you can get.
Good. Well, hopefully some of the people who are watching this that are looking for something to do through the winter would reach out to the Lethbridge Curling Club.
I hope so. We have our Learn to Curls at September 25th and 26th. We'll get that out on our social media channels and in our advertising and let people know. And we welcome everybody. If you've never curled before in your life, doesn't really matter. Come on in, and we'll teach you how to curl.
Yeah. Now, before we wrap up, speaking of that person that's never curled before and is thinking of something to do, what would be your sage advice to them?
Come on down and try it. It can't hurt to try it. We have our instructors are so good. They're so patient. They will show everybody. You don't have to be super athletic to learn how to curl. It's the old thing. You got to feel, a little bit of bad knees, something. We've got devices to help you, get the rock down the ice, help you sweep, help you get it all done. But I think my advice is just try. Just come on out and try it.
Yeah, because it's not that physically demanding of a sport, is it?
At the beginning level, no, it's not. Right? Once we teach you how to sweep and you learn how to do that, you'll want to get a little bit better and a little bit more exertion. And of course, the pros at the top level is as physically demanding as any sport. But yeah, to get started, no, we can. It's a recreation at the beginning.
Yes.
Right. It just turns into a sport as it goes along.
Yeah. Now, here's kind of an off-the-wall topic, or question, I should say. So how heavy are the curling stones? We don't have to lift them, thankfully. We can slide them around. But what does one of those things weigh?
They are 40 pounds.
Okay, well, not bad.
Yeah, they're 40 pounds worth of granite. So we, and they slide along. We got to push them about 145 feet down the ice.
Yep.
Yeah.
And smooth as silk most of the time.
Smooth as silk. The running band on the bottom touches about 1/8 of an inch of the rock is riding on the ice. And the technology around pebbling and turning it and curling it it's state of the art now. So it's smooth. It smoothly it just slides down there.
Totally. And I think I was told once when I was much younger, if you fall, we'll just push you along too, and you can end up in the house. But
right, hopefully you bounce back up quick enough before we have to slide you along.
Yeah, that's right. So when this new season, well, I guess the new season is beginning, how do people register to participate in the club?
We have an online registration system through our website at lethbridgecurlingclub.com. Or once the office is open, you can come on in and talk to us, and we can register you here. We can give you a tour of the facilities and just give you a whole overview of what you can expect. So online, in person.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So you talked about the Learn to Curl. Are there any other events that are going to be coming up as we get closer to November, December?
We are hosting, one of the things that we did mention is in February this year, the Lethbridge Curling Club is hosting the University and College Canadian Championships in our club. Yeah, the U Sports and the CCAA curling championships. So that's a big deal. We'll have 32 teams from across Canada of university and college students here curling with opportunity to go to the Worlds. So it's a big deal. They'll be here for a week.
Wow, that's exciting. That is a big deal.
It is.
So that's February 2025.
Correct.
Kirk, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. I love talking about curling.
Yeah, me too. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
That was Kirk Mearns. He is the general manager for the Lethbridge Curling Club, and you can find more about them at www.lethbridgecurlingclub.com. For all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Michael Clausen. Thanks for watching.